we're looking at, this is the main weather system for the week, is this basically subtropical system. They're calling it potential tropical cyclone 8 because right now it's an area of low pressure. It does have some pretty good wind with it. I think there's been some reports about 40, 45 mile per hour wind out over the waters. Could become a named tropical storm right before it makes landfall, and then it will kind of push inland, become a depression. And this track is a little shifted more to the south than what it was with the earlier forecast, which is allowing us to see a little bit less wind in the forecast and maybe not quite as much rain, but still going to be breezy and wet. And so we'll talk about that. And then you see the depression tracks up here near Charlotte by Wednesday, and eventually kind of washes out over parts of Western Carolina and Western Virginia. So we'll kind of walk through how that's going to play out. If you look at the weather maps here, we'll do this again, just real quickly. This is this afternoon with this potential, tropical cyclone moving in right along the South Carolina coast. But again, our main weather maker is this high pressure to the north. Really got this tight gradient with that, pretty decent east-northeast flow. It's driving the tides up. It's going to help push some moisture in here a little bit later. It's driving those small craft advisories, maybe even get some gusts to 35 knots potentially, especially as we get into later tonight and into tomorrow morning. So we're in that squeeze play is what's been going on for us. By Tuesday morning, about 24 hours, you see that low pressure system is now inland. The gradient still tight across Virginia, so going to have a nice, east-northeast flow across, northeast North Carolina all the way up into Maryland. Definitely a better chance of precipitation tomorrow, so we'll talk about that. Pretty wet day in store. By the time we get to Wednesday, though, that low pressure system has moved inland to Charlotte. It's gotten quite a bit weaker. The high pressure is also weakening. And so that easterly flow is going to be a little bit weaker. Definitely lower chances of rain by the time we get into Wednesday. Maybe another little wave tries to develop off the coast, but that shouldn't be too much of a weather maker for us. I get into Thursday. I kind of see, again, this little wave kind of holding on here to North Carolina. This thing over West Virginia is kind of that remnant system that may be somewhere here over Western Virginia, West Virginia, as we get into a Thursday. Thursday, we could see a few little scattered showers. I don't know if it's going to be a washout, but if we see this wave developing, could still be some rain chances in the forecast for Wednesday. It's going to be Thursday. Friday, again, we still have this wave offshore. We have another front trying to drop down here on Friday, and that should be getting here by about Saturday with that next front. And so that's going to kick those winds back up again on the marine. So I think Wednesday is probably the nicest day on the marine waters, maybe a little bit into Thursday. Then those winds pick back up again for late Friday, and especially Saturday and into the weekend. You see even here on Sunday, with a little bit of a wave of low pressure off the coast again and high to the north, we're stuck in that squeeze play with that northeast flow. So going to be a little bit unsettled, and especially on the marine side of the house. Things are going to stay bumpy here for a while. It's just going to be typical fall, almost kind of a weather pattern for us. Headline-wise, we do have coastal flood advisories in effect for much of the area, really the entire bay, and also along the coast. The only place we do not have coastal flood advisories is Ocean City. Not expecting the water levels to be too bad there, and not too bad on the Currituck Sound either. So mainly along the coast, and then also there for our bay areas where we're expecting to see some tidal flooding here, which we'll get into. Peak wind-wise, not too bad, just typical breezy conditions, maybe winds of about 35 miles per hour near the coast and areas along the bay and the rivers. As you push further inland, wind gusts maybe around 25 miles per hour up and down the I-95 corridor, and maybe, low 20s as you get further inland. And again, it's because we have that squeeze play between the high pressure to the north and the low pressure to our south, but nothing too bad as far as wind is concerned. So there is a little bit of a severe weather threat. It's marginal. We have a marginal risk here. And if we do see a threat of a severe weather, it's mainly going to be probably more like this evening. We have it tonight, maybe early Tuesday morning. And it's really focused on, I say, northeast North Carolina, maybe a little bit here into southeast Virginia. And I'll show kind of a model simulation here of what the radar might look like. And so this is, maybe around 1 o'clock this afternoon. That may be a little bit aggressive, but you see most of the rain is still way down here in North Carolina this afternoon. As we step in through time, as we move in, this is to about midnight. By midnight tonight, you do start to see that spring shield starting to move north, maybe even some little bit of higher reflectivity here starting to move north late tonight, again about midnight or so. And then some of that higher reflectivity starts to move into northeast North Carolina by around 3 a.m. Tuesday morning, and then eventually up here into Southside Hampton Roads by about 6 a.m. So we're going to be watching this band late tonight and a little bit into tomorrow, see how it kind of persists through 9 a.m. There could be just enough shear in the atmosphere to cause any kind of stronger updrafts to circulate a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. It's not a big tornado threat, but it's not zero either. So we'll kind of watch out for that. But again, it looks like most of the bulk of the rain really, stays out of our area really through most of the evening and really gets in here later tonight. But then once you get into tomorrow morning's commute is going to be pretty wet, really from Hampton Roads all the way up through Richmond. We can have this nice band of precipitation that's just going to be streaming in across the area as that low pressure system is moving inland across the parts of South Carolina. So that's really our wet day, and that's going to persist through a lot of the day. Maybe by about 3 o'clock, this is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe we start to see some drying by mid to late afternoon from south to north. So maybe northeast North Carolina starts to break out, sometime maybe middle of tomorrow afternoon. It might take, in Richmond area, it might take almost through the evening commute for the rain to get out of here tomorrow. So I think it's just going to be overall a really pretty wet day for just about everybody as far as tomorrow's concerned. So there is a little bit of a risk of excessive heavy rain. This is the slight risk mainly across North Carolina. A little bit lower risk as you get further north there across Richmond, just a marginal risk, but a slight risk there where we could see enough heavy rain to give us maybe a little bit of flooding. Could Hampton Roads and some of the urban areas get enough rain to maybe see a little bit of a minor ponding and things like that on the road? Definitely could be a problem, but nothing widespread. No widespread flooding. You notice that band of precipitation was pretty progressive. So it's going to rain for a good bit tomorrow. Might have a few little minor problems here and there, but the rain is moving through. It's not like it's going to be raining for days. So just some maybe spotty flooding issues here and there, but nothing too extreme. So this is our rainfall amounts and what we're forecasting. So generally it's going to be about maybe an inch and a half. The areas in yellow, maybe an inch and a half to 2. So even here in Hampton Roads, you see a little bit of a bullseye here, somewhere maybe around Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake. Maybe we do get a couple pockets where you get an inch and a half to 2 inches of rain. A little bit more, maybe close to 2 inches across parts of North Carolina. You got a strip here up through Franklin. It's hard to say exactly where this will line up, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a strip of heavier rainfall, an inch and a half to 2 inches, somewhere across the area, and maybe even some bigger bullseyes here, maybe where you start to get maybe 2 to 3 inches potentially. It's hard to say exactly where that will be. It's just a matter of how that band lines up and maybe who gets an extra, 30 minutes of heavier rain versus somebody else. This is the probability of exceeding 2 inches of rain. So kind of, if you had to say, okay, what's the chance that I'm actually going to get 2 inches of rain? I mean, again, you see parts of Hampton Roads here, especially on the south side, it's showing about maybe a 30% chance that our folks down here could see maybe up to 2 inches. A little bit better chance, obviously, especially once you get into these orange areas. So, when you get down here towards Rocky Mount, maybe, basically way south of Emporia, getting out here towards Carr Lake, and then especially right down here along the border down in North Carolina, you're definitely starting to see more of a, a higher probability, 50 to 60% probability of seeing the 2 inches. But, you're definitely seeing across a lot of our area probability, 30 to 40%, maybe even a 40, 50% probability here that we might see 2 inches. So definitely could make a run at 2 inches of rain, but it just doesn't look like 2 inches of rain is going to be widespread everywhere. Just a nice, good soaking rain for everybody. This is our 7-day total. So this takes into account the storm system that's coming through tomorrow, off and on scattered rain chances, especially get into a Tuesday night. Maybe even a few scattered showers on Wednesday, and then the rain chances might increase a little bit again Thursday and Friday, just for some more scattered showers around. So just kind of gives you just the overall picture. So the good news is it is a good soaking rain. We do need a good soaking rain. So a good solid day of nice steady rainfall off and on is it's welcome. We need that right now, especially up in the mountains where we may see a little bit higher totals with some of the orographic lifting there along the ridges. So that's, very welcome rainfall really for the entire region. So that's good news. Just kind of running down our chances of rain across the region. Again, you notice most areas, those rain chances increase across North Carolina. Really, even today, you got likely rain chances there. But then by the time you get into tonight, we're really getting into likely rain chances pretty much everywhere. And that really pushes through into most of tomorrow. And those rain chances slowly decrease as you get into tomorrow evening. Still got some pretty good, decent chances of scattered showers even Wednesday morning, but then those chances even start to decrease across much of the area Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday looks like we'll see a little bit of break in the morning, and then just those chances of scattered showers and storms, pop up again there for Thursday afternoon. And that's going to be pretty much daily. Friday afternoon will be another chance for, 30 to 40% chance of scattered showers, even on Friday. But you can kind of see the bulk of the rain here really coming in later tonight and really through much of the day tomorrow before those chances start to decrease. So with those persistent, easterly winds, kind of east northeast winds, it's going to push a lot of water in the bay. We're also in a higher astronomical tide cycle, so really we are expecting some minor tidal flooding, really just about everywhere, all along the bay, especially from I'd say Chincoteague south. The water is just going to build up, and it can't get out of the area with that persistent east northeast wind. So about maybe a foot or so of inundation above ground level, right along the waterfront. Typical places that typically flood, they're going to flood. And so looking at some of our tides, across the region, that higher high tide is really going to be the one that's coming in later this evening. We just had a high tide in some of the areas, and that was the lower of the high tides. The higher astronomical tide is really going to be that tide that's going to be later this evening and later tonight, depending on where you are. So just realize that. And those easterly winds are also going to be increasing. So, looking at the lower James here, you're basically getting into the Scotland Ferry area over towards Smithfield. Definitely going to see some minor tidal flooding here later on this evening. And that's pretty much persistent even here at Sewell's Point, maybe getting right into minor tidal flooding here a little bit later on. Going into the Upper Bay, going up here towards Bishop's Head, we might be able to approach moderate flooding. Notice how the tidal flooding is going to last a little bit longer here in the Upper Bay, because once that water gets in the Lower Bay, it gets stuck in the Upper Bay longer. It takes it, and the winds aren't really going to change direction. So that water is really going to get stuck in the Upper Bay. So that's why you're seeing maybe some prolonged tidal flooding here at Bishop's Head, and even the tides here at Cambridge. Here on the Cambridge isn't on the chart, but the high tides at Cambridge are going to remain elevated as well. Really, probably for most of this week. You see here at Louisetta, the tides come up, and they still remain elevated. They get right to minor tidal flooding, and they flirt right around minor, really, for most of the week. And I think that's going to be true for most of our locations, including Chrisfield, up in the upper part of the bay. It's just going to be some minor tidal flooding, potential really for most of this week, especially starting from late this evening, on, just because the wind direction really isn't going to change. On the ocean side, notice Ocean City doesn't quite get to minor tidal flooding, so stays just below. Here at Oyster, we will be getting into minor tidal flooding, maybe almost close to moderate, but then the water levels do start to decrease later on the week here on our ocean side. And here at Wachapreague, looks like we'll stay maybe right below minor tidal flooding. So again, that's all being driven by these marine winds, that east to northeast wind, right around, I'd say 30 knots or so, maybe even get a few gusts of 35 knots, especially I'd say Cape Charles South. Wouldn't be surprised somewhere in here to see a wind gust get up to 35 knots. Shouldn't be too much of that, but you might get a gust there as those bands move through later tonight and tomorrow. Maybe you do get a gust of 35 knots, but generally right around 30 knots peak wind. And the seas are really going to be building 7 to 10 feet offshore. The bay is mainly running about 4 to 5 feet, maybe even getting close to 6 feet as you get down here towards the mouth of the bay. And the waves are going to be kicked up here for quite some time. We'll talk about that. So running it down day by day, here today, getting into that 30 knots of wind or so, is the red area showing maybe gusts of 34, 8-foot waves, 5 foot on the bay. So again, some pretty gnarly conditions here today, just kind of nasty. It does persist through all day tomorrow. You see a lot of oranges and reds on the map. But then by Wednesday, things do improve a little bit. You see just the yellows with about maybe, 15 knots on the bay, maybe about gusts of 20 on the ocean, and waves still running about 4 feet. So Wednesday, things improve a little bit. Thursday, the marine conditions might hold on. We might see still some decent conditions, especially early on Thursday into Thursday evening. But then notice back here for Friday, that front comes down and those winds pick right back up again. So we'll see widespread, wind gusts here about 20, 25 knots really everywhere. And the waves and the seas are going to build back up. So you got this window there. I'd say Wednesday and into Thursday, that's our best day on the waters before the winds increase again. And it looks like once the winds increase Friday, I think those winds are going to be consistent through the entire weekend with that northeast wind, blowing pretty decent small craft advisory conditions from Friday, maybe all the way through at least Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. So this just kind of shows you our sustained winds here on the left, the wind gusts here on the right. And again, conditions really do improve by the time you get into Wednesday and Thursday, with even the peak winds Wednesday afternoon only around 15 knots, and then even lighter for Thursday. And again, remember, those winds are going to increase again on Friday. So things do improve Wednesday, and looks like Thursday should be a decent day on the water as far as not too rough. This is our sea state. So again, you notice some pretty good seas, 7 to 8 feet there on the coastal waters all the way through Tuesday. Improves a little bit on Wednesday, but they're still 4 to 5 feet. Maybe by Thursday, the ocean waves, we can get them down to around 3 feet. We'll see how that goes. And again, they're going to kick right back up again for Friday. As far as the rip currents, that kind of a given. With this much wind coming offshore, with this much wave, we're going to have high rip currents really from now, really all the way through. I'd say at least through Wednesday. It may even persist a little bit into Thursday. At least be moderate. But even on Wednesday, I think it's going to take a while for the surf to calm down. So we'll probably see high rips all the way through at least Thursday. Excuse me, at least Wednesday. So that kind of sums it up. I will go ahead and stop the recording.